Welcome to the world through the looking glass.
We are a disease, Jonathan. A sickness that corrupts all it touches. All we kiss, and all we kill.
Who gave you the right to decide the fate of thousands of people?
What have you done?
You will be damned, Dr. Reed.
If I could only change one thing. One thing. This is a nightmare. I have this thirst for blood.
What is darkness but lurking sun? What is war but enslaved stone? What is glass but tortured sand? What is song but a call to arms? What is life but death pending?
So Vampyr is a game that released back in 2019 and it had a bit of a mixed reception. Most people loved it, I sure as hell did, but some people didn't really see the appeal. And I kind of get their points because this game, it's not a technical marvel or anything. It also came at the very nearing end of the last console generation, so that wasn't really helping it at all. But this game is a lot of fun. It has great ambience and themes and all these different things that I have always wished to have in a vampire story of some kind, whether that would be a game, a movie, a TV show, or a book, it doesn't matter. But I was just always a fan of vampires and Dracula, like a lot of other people, and I just wanted a game to capture that feeling of being a vampire or that gothic architecture feeling mixed in with some werewolves or ghouls or something like that. And Vampyr does a lot of that. It comes really close to being such a masterpiece of a game. It has a bit of some things that it falls short on, but all in all, I can't just not look back fondly at this game. So it released back in 2019, developed by Don't Nod, who are also the same developers of Life is Strange, of all games, and more recently, Banisher's Ghosts of New Eden, which is a game that looks very similar to Vampyr, and I'm really happy and glad to see that they have taken what they've learned from Vampyr and their previous games and just keep on building on their experience with these new games. And Banishers looks really interesting. I plan to play it at some point in the future. It looks just like Vampyr in some instances, but with witchers instead or something. I don't know. We'll talk about it later when I play it. But back to the main course today, Vampyr. This game blew me away. I remember watching the very first gameplay trailer back in 2017 or 2016, and it was an alpha demo of the game, and it just blew me away. I think I was 15 at the time, and it doesn't have that sort of big AAA budget behind it. This game is more of an indie, treading the line of indie, right? More of a AA game from a AA studio. And there's nothing wrong with that. We've also seen recently stuff like Plague Tale, and AA developers can really bring new and interesting and unique ideas to the table. But with Vampyr, I remember being infatuated and obsessed with a couple of trailers that they dropped, and the music and the voice acting and just the entire vibe of the game. Something about it just was so right that it just attracted me at every step of the way during the teasers they put out and during the campaigns as they started to roll out and release the game. And the saddest thing is I didn't even get to play the game till 2 years later after it released. because then I had just gotten my hand on a PS4. And it was one of the very first games that I have played on that console, and it's just such a memorable experience. But enough talking about all of that, let's just get into the synopsis of the game. So Vampyr takes place in England, London, in 1918, right after World War I ended, and it follows the story of one Dr. Jonathan Reed. As he goes back to London, he finds a new threat of the Spanish flu, and how that affects people he knew, people he gets to know. And it creates this massive dilemma that you have to address, and your choices greatly affect the entire game from start to finish. As Dr. Jonathan Reed, you have two decisions. It's a game like Infamous, where you can go bad karma or good karma. With Vampyr, you can remain true to your Hippocratic oath as a doctor to serve and take care of citizens and their health, or completely submitting into becoming a vampire. Because as soon as Dr. Reed comes back from the war, he gets bit, he turns into a vampire, and he tries to learn how to live with that and how to live with himself. Is he going to feed on anybody that he sees walking past? Or is he going to control his bloodlust and try to find a cure, try to help, try to heal the sick during this pandemic? And the choice just completely depends on you as the player. Vampyr has a lot of choices that come across dialogue and different things that will affect the story. And it can affect the story really quickly as soon as you take the decision. According to the choices that you make, citizens can get affected, and then their loved ones or their friends will also get affected, negatively or positively, affecting the entire district. And London in this game has only 6 districts, so you better take care of them. Unless if you just want to wreak havoc and chaos and you don't really care for any of that. There's also a trophy for just completely burning London down. If you choose to just go full Dracula and Vlad everybody that you see. But this is why I really like this game, or I like games like this in general, again, like Infamous, where it gives you the choice, the freedom of just discovering what you want to do, which options and which choices would you want to take. If you make a mistake and you go back and you change something, either way, with these types of games, they always have some replayability to them, so that when you finish it once, you can go back and try to see what the other choices that you didn't do the first time would have been like. What kind of choices or new pathways does it open up for you? And how does it greatly change and affect the story? And the story here does really change dramatically. And you can get one of the best endings if you remain a doctor and if you heal the sick. One of the things that people don't really like about this game is how clunky the combat can get. But to be honest, yes, the combat in this game can be very, very clunky at times, and sometimes things will be a hit or a miss. It won't be really that satisfying, but the animations and the particle effects and everything about Jonathan himself, the things, his abilities that he gains as he becomes more of a powerful vampire, the things that he can do, they all look and feel really, really cool. So I'm kind of torn between what to say about the combat, really, because yeah, especially if you are playing on higher difficulties, it can get really clunky and it's not that satisfying, and sometimes it will be really irritating, especially in boss fights or when there are too many enemies that you're fighting all at once. But Vampyr also offers you the choice to just run away, heal, or to reassess your strategy and then go back and fight the hunters or the different enemy types again. And speaking of enemy types, just know that there's more than one different type of enemy that you will be able to fight here. There are werewolves that are technically vampires. There are also kind of infected zombie people that are also technically vampires. There are just vampires that look like people and look like Jonathan Reed. And of course, there's also some secret underground aristocrat vampire cult, because of course it is, it's London. But all in all, with an amazing musical score that just completely transforms and uplifts the world. The music is part of the atmosphere. It's so tied in with the game while you're playing. Every single district has a different feel. It looks different. Poorer districts, or districts that are doing worse, citizens will often just get sick out of nowhere, and it's up to you, Jonathan Reed, to go and meet with them individually and heal them and give them medicine. And if you don't do that, that is almost just as bad as if you were to outright drink their blood and drain them completely and kill them, because it's going to bring the district down. And when that happens, the district becomes hostile and overrun, and it becomes this really interesting gameplay loop, and you have to balance it out. Even if you decide on just killing a few people, but still want a good ending or a normal ending to be like a morally gray kind of doctor, vampire doctor, you're going to have to heal people, just as you are also going to want to devour people. And something that the game doesn't just look the other way about, which I really, really love, is consequence. And I don't just mean that in the way of the district system, right, where districts can fall and districts can become better depending on your actions, but also with the boss fights. The game will punish you really, really harshly if you are just going around killing everybody. The game will scale up the bosses, making it harder on you to defeat them and progress through the story. And it sets a new kind of challenge that wasn't really there before. Because if you are sticking by your oath and you're still a good doctor and you go around healing the sick, bosses are still like significantly difficult, but not nearly as difficult as when you are just completely Bram Stoker's Dracula going around slaughtering people for fun. And that is really immersive to me. The game will not let you go off easy, or at least too easy off the hook. And it keeps things fresh and interesting, and there isn't one playthrough of this game that will be completely one-to-one like the next or previous playthrough. Every kind of playthrough is unique in its own way a little bit, at least with me when I played it, and it was always a great time. It was always fun. It was always a different challenge, whether that would be I was just a vampire, completely disabandoning my doctor life and going around killing people for fun. Then the challenge became, well, shit, bosses are significantly harder now, and I have to defeat the boss to, you know, continue the story and finish the game. But if I was a good doctor and I did not continue down the path of being an evil vampire who just drank blood for fun, then the difficulty would be that you wouldn't have as much XP to upgrade Jonathan Reed's abilities and just utilizing his more vampiric nature. So then you would have to resort to the blunt weapon and the gun that you use as weapons to defeat people, and it would be much, much slower, and you would be slowly chipping away at enemies' healths. And to be honest, that kind of made the combat just more clunky, and it wasn't really that fun. So most of the time I would just be avoiding it, turning invisible, which is an ability, and just completely avoiding all combat, at least the ones that I could avoid. And all in all, this game is wonderful. It falls short in a bunch of things, but the atmosphere and the vibe that Don't Nod have created here, that is honestly super unique and really interesting, and I think it will remain that way for a really long time. Within the past couple of decades, we haven't really gotten vampire games that often. Vampire comes completely out of nowhere, a brand new IP, expanding on a brand new world, and it was just really fun to completely delve into it from start to finish. across how many years they were making this game. They first revealed it in E3 back in 2015. Yeah, guys, remember when E3s were a thing? And then it just kept going, and it released finally in 2019, and I'm just here wondering where did the time go? I remember being a kid, like being a tween, and just watching videos about this game and being super excited about it, and being also frustrated that there wasn't that much coverage about it. And then as time went on, I started to see more videos about it, and it just, I just had to talk about it for a little bit. So yeah, that's all. What do you guys think about Vampyr? Have you played it yet? If you haven't, it's constantly on sale on all platforms, and I mean all platforms. So yeah, even though the combat can be a little bit clunky, and the game doesn't really have the best of load times, and sometimes, even though it's not an open world game, it's more like an open hub like DSX, the game will just freeze and load for a couple of seconds. But honestly, all in all, with an amazing story, amazing atmosphere, this is a game that I have not forgotten at all, and I don't think I ever will. It has a very special place in my heart, and yeah, so that was it. See ya.